Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Guillaume, and Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. Our guest today is Dr. Ulises Casab Rueda. Welcome. And his daughter is also here, Dilam. She is going to be interpreting for him. So Dr. Ulises Casab Rueda was born in Oaxaca. Did I mess that up? Hey, in Mexico. So he is a narrator and poet, and he is also a surgeon and radiologist. He has been a commentator on cultural issues in various radio and television spaces in Mexico. And he has contributed to a number of publications, writing from topics regarding chess to obviously writing his famous book, or famous for us at least, which is his book that I just learned was originally in Spanish, and it was translated into English, which talks about the Iraqi Christians in Mexico. So welcome. We are so happy that you're here today.
Te dicen bienvenido y que están muy contentos de tenerte aquí.
Me too.
Thank you. So we are going to go right from the very beginning. Please tell us where you were born and what your childhood experience was like.
Platícanos dónde naciste y cómo fue dónde naciste y dónde creciste y algo de tu infancia.
Nací en Telkef el 25 de noviembre de 1935. Mis padres son Tobias Casab, originario de Telkef, y mi madre Julia Rueda, nacida en Juchitán, Oaxaca.
I was born November 25th, 1935 in Telkef, Mosul in Iraq, and my parents were the Iraqi Chaldean Tobias Casab, and my mother was Julia Rueda, who was born in Juchitán, Oaxaca, Mexico.
In 1937, the family emigrate from Telkef to Mexico. In this place, yo fui a la escuela primaria y fui a la escuela secundaria y después me registré como mexicano, pensando en que algún día yo necesitaría algún documento que probara mi estancia. Eso es todo.
So in 1937, the family emigrated from Iraq to Mexico. And at that time, I went to school. I went to primary, secondary school, and I was not registered. So I had to register myself, and I got the national documents to be a national Mexican, because at some point, there needed to be a document that I was born there, but I was registered as a national Mexican in that country.
So I'm assuming that because he only lived 1 year in Telkef, so he probably has no memory of that area.
Correct. I will let him know. Dice que como sabemos que nada más tenías 1 año cuando te fuiste de Irak a México, no recuerdas muchas cosas, ¿o recuerdas algo?
Solo recuerdo que no recuerdo.
He says the only thing that he remembers is that he doesn't remember.
Okay, well, is there any particular story that stands out that was shared by his parents? And whatever that story is it included in his book?
¿Hay alguna historia, que, si tú no te acuerdas, hay alguna historia que tus papás te hayan dicho de esa época o hay algo en tu libro que hable de ese periodo en tu vida?
Decían mis hermanas que cuando yo tenía 1 año y 2 meses, estando jugando ellas, se me cayeron las colchonetas sobre mi cuerpo y al ratito empezaron a buscarme y fue el susto de que ahí pude haber muerto. Es lo único que me cuentan mis hermanas.
But at that time, when they made the trajectory, he was traveling with his siblings and his sisters. What they tell him, that what they remember is that when he was like 1.5 years and 2 months, they were playing together and they were playing with like bed covers, and some of them fell where he was on top of him. So he fell asleep and he was hiding and they couldn't find him. And they were so worried about him because he was just a baby that they thought that he was dead. And he was like, yeah, so they were like super worried. So that's one of the details that they remember on the, you know, as you know, it took a long time for them to make the trajectory from one country to another.
And what prompted this decision for them to leave the area during that time?
¿Por qué decidieron tus papás irse de Irak e ir a México?
Bueno, mi papá había hecho una gran fortuna, una muy buena fortuna, la primera vez que fue a México. Y creyendo que iba a ir muy bien, se regresó con toda la familia a Telkef. Pero los vientos de la guerra, el odio religioso hacia los cristianos, los abusos que se cometían a los telkefnayas y otras circunstancias hicieron que se regresara. Y además la falta de empleos. Mi papá tenía un molino para moler trigo y quebró, no pudo soportar el desabasto de mercancías y tuvo que regresarse a México.
My father went to when my father went to Mexico for the first time, he made good money and he had a good amount of money. So going back to his country was thought that he thought that it was going to be a good experience because he had that type of good standing and backup. He thought that he was going to do well. But when he arrived, the horrors of war, and then also the lack of ethical treatment to Christians and Telkefnayas and the lack of jobs made him leave. At that time, he had a mill and he was producing, but there was not enough demand and he was not able to sustain it. And because of that, he decided to go and take the rest of the family and go back to Mexico, where he was already doing well.
Thank you for that. And, you know, I just want to mention also Azu has joined us, and she is also one of Dr. Ulises' children, one of his daughters. Welcome.
Thank you, Guillaume.
So now let's go into about regarding the community in Mexico. What was the community in Mexico like during the time that your father immigrated to that area? So I know you were still a child, of course, but what was the area like? And then what was it like for you growing up as a Chaldean in Mexico?
Dice que una vez que te mudaste a México, ¿cómo puedes describir a la comunidad caldea en México y en tu vida, cómo fue haber sido parte de esta comunidad en México?
Fue algo maravilloso. Los paisanos, voy a llamarlos así, telquefnayas, se reunieron al principio en Juchitán, Oaxaca, donde estuvieron alrededor de la casa de la mamá de mi madre. Y ahí se reunían la mayoría de ellos cada semana. Yo era muy chico, tendría 5, 6, 7 años. Se arremolinaban para escuchar las noticias que había sobre la guerra y sobre las dificultades que tenían. Pero los paisanos telquefnayas alrededor de esa casa vivieron cordialmente, se trataban como hermanos, se mezclaron con los nativos de Juchitán, de Ixtepec, de Ixtaltepec, de Espinal, y en general tenían una muy buena aceptación tanto de los mexicanos como de ellos mismos. Estamos muy agradecidos de esa convivencia que recibimos.
My perspective, it was a wonderful experience. At that time, I remember that our Telkepnaya countrymen, people from the same place of origin, we call them compadres, and that's like a term of endearment for people who are from our old country. They used to get together in Juchitán, Oaxaca, and my mother's house was the place where everyone got together. They were together every week religiously, and I was really young, but I still remember them getting together next to the radio to listen to the news because they still wanted to be connected to what was happening back in their old country. What I could tell you is that Telkepnayas, when they arrived to Mexico, they lived in harmony with the rest of the population because they respected them. They were like brothers. And not only that, but they mixed with each other, and not just in that town. They started going into other towns, and they continued to live in harmony and with a sense of toleration between each other.
So Dr. Ulises is a doctor, he's a surgeon, and yet he made the time to write a book about the Chaldeans or and the Christian community in general in Mexico. What led to that? What led to him, inspired him to document something like this, which, by the way, we are so grateful for, and we are including his book in the museum when we move because we feel like it's such a good source for everybody. But what led him to that, and what was the experience like of putting this book together?
Pues bueno, aquí ella dice, papá, que está muy contenta de tener esta entrevista porque escribiste este libro y quiere saber qué fue lo que te inspiró a poner este documento, y dice que qué bueno que está este documento, que gracias por ponerlo todo en escrito en un archivo histórico y que por eso va a ser parte del museo. Pero la pregunta es, ¿qué te inspiró a escribir el documento, el libro?
Cuando yo veía en la casa de mis padres cómo se reunían alrededor de la puerta de entrada a la sala, unos 10, 12, 15, 20, y hablo en serio, 20, 25 tal vez, caldeos, telquefnayas, que tapaban la calle y hacían una algarabía, un ruido. Era una alegría de cómo oírlos, cómo discutir y cómo pensar en ese Telkef. Y cuando me di cuenta de que se habían asimilado, se habían convertido en unos mexicanos más, se habían integrado al modo de vivir de los oaxaqueños, de los ixtepecanos, de los juchitecos, me di cuenta que éramos mestizos con una raigambre mexicana, pero con un background, con un antecedente telquefnaya, suraya, como ustedes lo pronuncien o quieran decir. Y eso me inspiró a que todas esas anécdotas, todas esas leyendas, todos esos cuentos que decían, no podían quedar sin que tuviera plasmado en un libro como el que hice.
My first inspiration, it all happened at my parents' house. I always remember to see groups of Chaldeans, 10, 12, 15, 20, 25 Chaldean Telkef getting together either in the house or when I saw them in the street. They made noise. They were intense. They were loud. I love to hear their experiences, their stories, the way they talked, the way they analyzed, and the way they explained their point of view, even in arguing. And at some point, when looking at those cultural differences and in the way they assimilated with Mexico, I realized that the process of assimilation for them was inwards in the way that they respected the cultures, the culture of Mexico, and they assimilated. So at some point, and with the newer generations, they became Mexicans of Telkef origins. And when hearing those stories, and because there was nothing tangible to put those oral stories in a tangible document, that basically inspired me to write the book, because we needed a historical account that will tell the rational and the emotional stories of this particular group.
I feel when you're describing his reasons and what inspired him, he's really setting up the scene to how it is right now in Michigan as well. And we had an info session yesterday where we had Chaldeans of different ages sharing their viewpoints and feeling how they want to document their stories, and being very, it was very fun actually, because they're very intelligent and they were able to address so many issues. And we all have that sense of wanting to document. Of course, he's in an area that's wonderful. I mean, we have discovered Chaldeans in Argentina who we are currently helping document their stories. And so Dr. Ulises is helping us start that with his book, of course, as well as I'm sure there will be other opportunities. But everything that he's describing, even the assimilation part, feels so much like the Chaldeans here in the United States. There is a sense of us being able to embrace our surroundings and our new area, but then maintain who we are at our heart, and not impose it on others or the country that we come into. So that's very interesting. And you can share that with him before I go on to the next question, if you like.
Dice que lo que estás describiendo le va a servir mucho a ella y le sirve porque es, digamos, el fundamento de exactamente lo mismo que pasó con los caldeos que vinieron a este país, Estados Unidos, e incluso a otros países. Entonces, teniendo un documento histórico donde tú lo tienes, que es primero dónde pasó, digamos que es el fundamento de una tendencia cultural que sucedió en otros lugares, por ejemplo, en Estados Unidos, en Argentina y en los lugares donde se asentaron otros caldeos. Y ahorita me va a dar la otra pregunta.
¿Sí puedo decirle algo más?
Oh, he's going to tell me something related to your comment.
¿Puedo?
Sí, claro.
Esas reuniones, creo yo, que son las pioneras, porque hacia 1922, 23, tal vez 24, había más telquefnayas en Ixtepec que en Detroit. Y eso debe haber sido una inspiración para los que fueron desde Ixtepec a radicar a Detroit.
Guillaume, what you are saying is very important because these reunions and these get-togethers, he really thinks that the analytical cultural thought and discussions that they were having at that time really became the foundation for this cultural exchange and assimilation, because by circa 1922-23, they're documented there were more Telquepnayas in Mexico than in Detroit.
Wow.
So it would be the foundation of this school of thought.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate him saying that. And we were surprised by, we were invited by another group to create this info session that was supposed to end at 3, that went on almost till nighttime because of the excitement. And just, right now talking to him just reinforces all this and why this excitement, it's still in our spirit. I wanted to ask him regarding his book. I want to pay attention to his book because I really think that people should read it regardless of whether they're in Mexico, and even it's just so informative, and there are so many similarities, but the history that he documents here is very, very important. What themes does he include in his book? How did he decide what to include, and what was the research process like for him?
Dice que tu libro es muy importante y que todo el mundo debe leerlo, aunque no hayan sido parte en México. Y ahora ella está dándonos la pregunta 4, que es, ¿qué temas exploras en tu libro y por qué esos temas fueron importantes para ti?
No, yo no exploro los pensamientos prácticamente de ningún telquefnaya, yo en lo personal. Mis informantes son los propios telquefnayas, que no eran más que unos 6 o 7, pero en cambio recurrí a unos 40 o 50 hijos de telquefnayas, tanto radicados en Detroit como en Ixtepec, como en otras partes de la República Mexicana, y ellos hicieron una pequeña semblanza de cada uno de sus padres, de tal manera que tengo cerca de 30 o 40 pequeñitas biografías de cada uno de ellos. Ese es el boot, como dicen, del documento. Yo nomás soy un recopilador y también me inspiré en alguna manera en cosas fundamentales que sí hay que recordarlo. ¿Quiénes eran ellos? Yo no estaba muy capacitado para hacerlo. Por eso recurrí al libro de Sam Davish, al libro de Fray Cheiko, al libro de Michael Bassi, al libro de Abuti Nasser, a una fotografía histórica donde 20 telquefnayas están retratados en 1929 en Juchitán, Oaxaca. Recurrí a los censos de población, a los archivos de la Nación Mexicana y a los archivos de la migración de los caldeos hacia México. Eso es lo que traté de hacer en este libro y está documentado.
In a humble way, what he wants to say is that he didn't write or analyze, he compiled the information for as an historical archive. That was his first concern, to document the historical migration of Chaldeans there. So his informant and him compiling the information were the first 6 to 7 main Telkebnayas that he met when he was growing up. But not only that he talked to them, he also talked to over 40, 50 of their kids and their children. And he compiled all the information so that he could also get a sense of who they were through the eyes of their acculturated children. So from who they were to the new generations, and then through the lens of acculturation and their new setting in the house. Also, to write this book, he wanted to make sure that he informed himself and then also pay tribute to the people that wrote about the Chaldean experience in the past, like the compilations of Sam Davish in 1928, the information from Michael Bassi, Abu Nasser. There's also a historical picture of 20 Telkebnayas. He went through the census, Mexican archives, and immigration archives to make sure that the information was documented as much as possible and not just to rely on oral history.
Wow, that is amazing. And I know for anybody that's interested to get this book, it is available on Amazon. They can just what is this is the words right here in Spanish. Can you say the words in Spanish and then the translation of his book?
Yes, yes, yeah. And if you want to show the book, what he is doing with the cover is a portmanteau, which is when you combine two words. So he's combining the word Ixtepec, which is the town where the first Telkebnayas arrived in Mexico, one of the towns where they ended up spending a lot of time, and then Telkepe. So that's why they used to call that town Ixtepec-Telkef. Exactly. So it's a portmanteau, a combination of words.
Yes.
For one.
Like I said, it is available on Amazon, and I think we also might have a few extra copies from the time that he visited and did a book signing here. And so, what is some of the things that he discovered as he was writing this book? What were things that were very touching for him or surprised him that maybe he wasn't aware of before, or stories that stood out regarding that area?
Okay, so dice que cuando estabas escribiendo este libro, esta es la pregunta donde ella dice que cuando lo estabas escribiendo, ¿qué te sorprendió o qué fue nuevo para ti cuando estabas escribiendo esta parte?
¿Cuál parte exactamente?
Pues no dice exactamente cuál parte, pero dice en general, cuando estabas haciendo esto, ¿hay algo que te sorprendió? ¿Hay algo que no esperabas ver o que...?
Bueno, me sorprendió el cariño con que los telquefnayas que se entrevistó por parte de la familia, por parte mía, cómo se le brillaban los ojos de alegría de que alguien se acordara de los sufrimientos y de las aventuras y de los deseos de ser alguien en la vida de cada uno de ellos, de los que vinieron de Telkef y se asentaron en Ixtepec.
One of the things that surprised me the most, and I knew there was going to be emotion, but not to that amount, is first how warm and welcoming were the Telkebnayas when, whether the parents or the kids, when I was asking them to share their experience. When they were doing that, their eyes were brighter. They were happy to share who they were and what their experiences are. And not only that they shared the not so positive aspects of immigration, but then they also shared in a very positive way a story of overcoming adversity. So the hopefulness and the way they had this point of view was surprising for me in a way, to the degree of how everyone expressed everything so vividly.
Thank you for that. And actually, that leads to the next question, which is, what were some of the major challenges that they faced when coming to Mexico or while living in Mexico as Chaldeans or as Christian Iraqis?
¿Cuáles fueron unos de los mayores obstáculos o problemas a los que se enfrentaron los telquepnayas cuando fueron a México?
Primero, el idioma. Segundo, las dificultades para tener trabajo, porque tampoco la República Mexicana estaba en bonanzas. Y tercero, que lo que ganaban se lo tenían que enviar a sus parientes en Telkef. Y la verdad, fueron maravillosos tanto los telquefnayas tratando de ganar dinero a través de un trabajo arduo, difícil, complicado, tanto como la maravilla de los ixtepecanos y juchitecos para ayudarlos y ayudarse ellos mismos para que fueran una misma comunidad para el progreso del istmo de Tehuantepec.
So their first obstacle, it was language, hands-on, first language. So it was learning the language. And then second, the difficulties trying to find work. Because at that time, it's not like Mexico was a thriving country where there were many available jobs. They had to take any job and work very difficult, complex jobs, or even find them or create jobs among themselves. And the third challenge is that they made money, but however much they made, they had to send back to Iraq to sustain their families. So with that, the other thing that happened is that with them working very hard, it was wonderful to see how they acculturated, and both Telquepnayas and Ixtepecans and Juchitecans in Mexico, they were very welcoming, and they knew that they were working very hard. So at the same time, they worked together so that both communities culturally could make a community of progress, so that both communities and them being immigrants, they became part of the progress and part of the people who contribute to the culture and the progress of that nation.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And again, reminder of so many similarities to the Chaldeans that went in other places regarding helping families, especially like during the war, after the Gulf War, during the sanctions. The community was relying on their relatives that were in the US and other Western countries. And then, the question is, how do you think the Chaldean culture has influenced Mexican society since their arrival?
¿Cómo crees que, bueno, primero dijo que muy buena respuesta y que qué bueno que dices eso, porque eso eso también es parte de lo que está pasando en otras comunidades. Y de esa manera ella pregunta, ¿cómo crees que la comunidad caldea ha influenciado la cultura mexicana?
Es difícil de explicar. México es muy, muy multiétnico. con multitud de costumbres diferentes. En la cultura mexicana es demasiado grande como para que los telquefnayas influyeran en el derrotero. Sin embargo, la primera generación que llegó trabajó muy duramente en el comercio. La segunda generación alcanzó títulos profesionales y técnicos que les dieron un lugar en la sociedad mexicana. Últimamente han incursionado los hijos de los primeros, de los pioneros, los nietos, en la política, en la ciencia y en la literatura y en el arte. No puedo decir el nombre de algunos de ellos o de ninguno para no herir susceptibilidades. Quien lea el libro verá que en un lugar de alguna página están escritos los nombres de los prominentes que me hicieron el favor de ayudarme a elaborar este libro. Especialmente a Karim Murat, que me hizo el favor de pagar la edición.
In a way, it's hard to explain because Mexican society is very complex. It's a multi-ethnic place with different ways of living, and it's a big country. So it's a small number of Chaldeans that came. So it's not that we can say that there was an influence that way, but what I could tell you is that the first generation that came worked very hard, and they did set an example in the new society where they became one part of. And then the second and third generations, meaning their children and their grandchildren, because of their hard work, they were able to go to college. And not only that, they were able to finish high-level degrees, not just college, but postgraduate degrees. Not only achieving privilege, but also giving them a place in society to the point of occupying important political and important positions as owners or big directives in the private sector. They at that point, those generations, you could tell that they have influenced the Mexican life in terms of politics, science, art, and literature. And there are many examples of the people and the children of the families who did this in my book. And the idea is to pay a tribute to all of them. But I think that the biggest example is what you will see in my book, in addition to those prominent names, is that here I want to help all the kind sponsors of the book that helped me put this together, and especially Karim Murat, who sponsored the printing of this book. And without him, it wouldn't have been possible to share this with the rest of the community.
Thank you. And also thank him from our end, from the Chaldean Cultural Center, that his family has been helping us quite a bit as he was helping us with moving and doing research for the new museum. And his granddaughter has been volunteering for us quite a bit. So he has not only had a huge influence in Mexico, but his children have been incredibly helpful here for the Chaldean community. So please thank him for that.
Absolutely. Dice que gracias por tu libro, y que además tú y tu familia están contribuyendo mucho al desarrollo cultural de los caldeos en Estados Unidos, porque tu hija y tu nieta y tu otra hija también han estado ayudando mucho en el desarrollo y la inauguración del nuevo Museo de Caldeos en Detroit.
Yeah, so he planted good seeds. So thank you for that. And so what message, I leave with the last question, and what is the message or insight that he hopes readers would take away from his book about the Chaldean or the Christian Iraqi experience in Mexico?
Y esta es la última pregunta. ¿Cuál es el último mensaje que le quieres dar a las personas con respecto a tu libro?
Más que mensaje, que este libro sea una inspiración para que otros puedan hacer, si no lo mismo, por lo menos que me superen. Y ya para despedirme yo, muchísimas gracias. Gracias por la entrevista. Pero muy importante, felicitaciones por su premio, Eric Hover. Estoy muy contento y muy feliz de saber que han reconocido su trabajo, el de usted, claro.
Couple things. First, he wants this book to become an inspiration for new generations that also want to document the Telkef Naya experience, the Chaldean culture, and so forth. This is not to inspire them to do a book like mine. This is to inspire them to do something even better and bigger. He also wants to thank you for taking time to set up this interview. He wants to congratulate you for the Eric Hover Award, and also for you becoming a CRESG recipient. So thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a lot of respect for you and for what you and the center does.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. That was not expected. I really appreciate that. And we're not done with you, by the way. When we're done with this interview, when you come to visit us, we have more to document and to interview you about. We are excited to document your life, because we find that not only has your contribution been enormous through this book, but just your life and a story in itself has been very inspiring.
Dice que muchas gracias, que no va a acabar contigo, que quiere seguir en contacto y que gracias a tu información vamos a seguir documentando y teniéndote en cuenta para continuar este trabajo. Thank you.
Azu Dalam, do you have anything else left to say? We have just like a couple of minutes left. If you want to share anything, or it's up to you if you want to do.
Thank you, William. On my end, I know my sister did a great job of translating. Like I said, thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for my dad. That it took all these years to do all that information. This was important for him, so we're seeing seeing how this is happening and this is coming to life. It's amazing for us.
Yeah, it really is. It's very special. And sometimes things are not apparent right away, but this has become such an important work, especially now when we're moving in the new museum and we're expanding the stories and the exhibits and about the Chaldeans going into Mexico and other areas around the world, actually.
Dilan?
You did such an amazing work interpreting. Do you have any words of your own that you would like to share?
Thank you for your time. The good thing is that a lot of this information I knew, I knew before, so it was very helpful to become acquainted with this, and just for everything you do, we appreciate it and have a lot of respect for this community. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I know that you've enjoyed this. We've gotten more views, I think, than almost. There was an archaeologist from Iraq who got that many views, I think, and I'm not sure who has the highest. But so you are loved, Dr. Ulises, definitely, and you're appreciated. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.